10 Sports Century will be going over 5 reasons why the Notre Dame Fighting Irish will go on to beat Clemson here on Saturday and why they're going to win the ACC Championship game. And this is going to be quite a game for Notre Dame, considering this is the first season that Notre Dame has been a part of the ACC, let alone a conference, and they're competing for a conference championship here this weekend. It's going to be quite an occasion for Notre Dame if they could win this game. We're going to be going over 5 reasons why Notre Dame will win it, and these reasons will be in no particular order. That being said, our number one reason is going to be Ian Book, the quarterback for Notre Dame, and honestly, he's playing as good as he ever has, really, at this point in the season. I mean, if you look at his stats right now, he's got 2,300 yards on the season, nearly 2,400, with 15 touchdowns and 2 interceptions, with a 63% completion rate, which, I mean, 63% completion is pretty good. I mean, it's not great, but he's definitely playing very well right now as far as Notre Dame goes, and this offense has definitely been showing that, considering, I mean, he's only thrown 2 interceptions this season, which is incredible. Like most great quarterbacks can't help but throw 4 or 5 in a season, and Ian Book's on track to not even get to that number. So he's been playing very well all season long, and that's a big reason why, once again, Notre Dame's offense has been so good this season, is because they've not been turning over the ball very much, and Ian Book has had a huge part in making that possible. But I mean, if you look at the offensive line too, that has improved a ton, especially from 2019 to 2020. And this is a team that was losing quite a bit of talent after 2019. So for them to improve like they have has been huge for this team. And honestly, for Ian Book, even though he's been playing for a long time, he still has lots of potential moving forward. And I think this game could definitely be the one game where he really breaks out. Number 2 is going to be the defensive line for Notre Dame. This team has definitely got one of the better defensive lines in the ACC. You can't forget about that. I mean, if you look at how many rush yards per game that they've allowed on average this season, they've only allowed 99 rush yards per game. That is incredible for any team, and I think that's probably one of the best stats in the nation as far as allowing rush yards go. I mean, most average teams have to allow at least 130 to 140 per game, and then Notre Dame's over here allowing less than 100. So this team is very, very good on the rushing defense side, and this is definitely one of the best defensive lines in the country. They're definitely going to have some players going to the NFL on this defensive line in the future. 3 is going to be Kyren Williams. He's had a huge breakout season for Notre Dame. I mean, if you look at his stats, he's put up nearly 1,300 yards and 13 touchdowns on a season where he's only a sophomore. This is a player that is extremely young, and for a running back to be putting up the stats that he is, like, this is extremely impressive out of Kyren Williams so far this season. And he's definitely a top 3 running back in the ACC, which that is saying quite a bit, considering the ACC has got a lot of great running backs that will be in the NFL later on. So for Kyren Williams, once again, for being a running back that has still got a lot of time in college, I mean, this is a pretty impressive season out of Kyren Williams for sure. And another thing you got to realize too, I mean, this is only through 10 games, and he's rushed for nearly 1,300 yards. Like in a normal season, he'd probably be around 1,600 at this point. So Kyren Williams has had a really good season once again, and that's been a big reason, I'm sure, why Ian Book especially has had as good of a season as he has, is because he's had a great running back on his side like Kyren Williams, which, one thing, this adds to an offense that has been one of the best in the nation too. You can't forget about that. So, you know, all around, Kyren Williams has had quite a year. Still got a ton of upside too, once again, considering he's as young of a running back as he is. I mean, yeah, he's got a ton of upside moving forward. Number 4 is going to be the experience on this Notre Dame side. This team did beat Clemson earlier on in the season. 47-40 was the final score there. And I do understand, like, Clemson was without Trevor Lawrence and a couple of key players on defense due to COVID, but still, I mean, Notre Dame has played very, very well all season long. And this is a team that's extremely consistent. They've been playing very well week in and week out. And this is a team that, once again, they beat Clemson, so they know how to beat Clemson already, and that should give them some good confidence going into this matchup, knowing that they did beat them earlier on in the season. But, I mean, if you look at Ian Book especially, he's been around for a while, and he knows how to play in big games, and that could definitely come to use in this matchup, because this is probably the biggest game that he has played in his entire career so far up to this point. Because if you win this ACC Championship game, that might just put you, that's probably going to keep that number 2 seed, and that's going to be really nice moving forward in the college football playoff. Because even if Notre Dame loses here, I mean, there's a chance they do end up getting dropped out of the top 4, but even if they are the 4th seed, you got to go up against an Alabama team that has been just outstanding this season, which really is not a good position to be in. So that's why it's so important for Notre Dame here. But yeah, Ian Book, this is going to be a huge game for him moving forward. And the Fighting Irish definitely, I mean, once again, they should have a lot of confidence going into this one, considering they did beat Clemson earlier on in the season. Lastly, number 5 is going to be Brian Kelly, the head coach for Notre Dame, and he has led Notre Dame to championships previously. I believe this team was in a national championship back a few years ago when Brian Kelly was just first starting his tenure at Notre Dame. But this is arguably the most talented team he's ever coached. I mean, you could argue that for sure, considering this Notre Dame did have a national championship team a few years back, but this is as good as that team, or even better, in my opinion. Like with Ian Book and Kyron Williams and this team in general, I mean, they've been outstanding this season. And you can't forget about the defense too. Like I've had so many reasons on here, I can't even talk about the defense. Like the defensive side is also extremely good. Like the D line is outstanding. The secondary's definitely played well this season. I mean, Brian Kelly's definitely got a great team here, and this is definitely one of the more talented teams he's ever coached. And really, I mean, he hasn't ever coached a conference championship, obviously, because Notre Dame's always been an independent, but he's definitely got some experience with high pressure scenarios. So that's definitely going to come to use in this matchup here against Clemson. But nonetheless, Brian Kelly's definitely a great coach, and he's definitely done very well with Notre Dame over his career over the past decade, and I expect that to continue well into the future for sure. But that wraps up my 5 reasons why Notre Dame will beat Clemson here on Saturday. Let me know your thoughts and comments below. All of my prediction out for the game tomorrow morning, so stay tuned for that. But then again, I appreciate you guys all watching. Stay tuned for more from All Sports Central. If you enjoyed this, please up a like on it, subscribe as well if you're not already yet, as it really helps with the channel. But once again, thanks again for watching. Stay tuned for more. I'll see you all later.